I really realized I was lost. And it was a really dark place for me. And I know I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of people that find themselves in a position where they're just lost. They don't know what to do.
Maria, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Dave, for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you. I love your channel. Well, my journey toward carnivore, it actually started probably back in 2001, about 20 years before I kind of became full-on kind of carnivore, ketovore. And I started by reading Dr. Atkins' book. I had some time to kill, and my mom and dad were doing Atkins. And for some reason, I read the book. Even though I wasn't a reader, I just had a bunch of time to read it. And it really made sense to me. And my mom and dad each lost like 40 pounds each doing Atkins 20 years ago. And they kept it off for the rest of their lives. It changed their lives. So I kind of, after reading the book, I realized I learned a lot of things, like, fat doesn't make you fat, the carb thing and stuff. So that was really helpful to me. So, but I never really stuck to it as far as I started at induction. It was called, like, originally you do induction and then you lessen 20 carbs, for a day for the first 2 weeks. And then additionally, after that, add 5 grams of carbs per week till you find out how many carbs you can handle before you stop losing weight. So it worked really well. The first 2 weeks, I lost 11 pounds back then. And I thought, oh, good, this is the answer. But I didn't really have a big weight problem. I just kind of thought, good, this is a tool if ever I, want to lose weight or whatever. I had the knowledge, but I fell off of it pretty quickly. And I never really, I never really had a big weight problem at that point, till that point. And same with growing up, like even in my 20s and 30s, even though I was a shy person, I was a professional singer and entertainer for 10 years. And in the shows we did, I'd have to change costumes 8 or 9 times a night. And so having my costumes fit, was really important to me. But I didn't really, this was before Atkins, and I didn't really have a plan. I just knew that if my costume started feeling tight, I wouldn't eat for 3 days. I just like whatever. And it always worked. But the thing about that was I know at the time I thought I was being bad, that it wasn't the smartest way to do it. I was starving myself because I'd eat anything. I could eat a lot of things, but then it always worked if I just stopped eating for 3 days, which I realized later that I was actually fasting. Called it starving at the time, but I was fasting for a few days, and then my costumes would be great, and that's how I kind of just did it for years, actually. And it wasn't that often. It was maybe once a year or a couple times a year that I thought, I'm starting to, not fit into my stuff. So, and growing up in a household, we didn't have a lot of stuff. I mean, we had a traditional family, but we didn't have a lot of snacks in the house. We didn't have pop. Like at Christmas, we might have pop at Christmas time. One Christmas, I remember we got 2 pops, like 2 sodas, which was just a real treat for us. And we weren't a dessert family. My mom wasn't a baker, so it was always, if you wanted a snack, my mom would say, well, have an apple. And I'd like, but yeah, I don't want an apple. And she said, well, then you're not hungry. And okay. And that was her gauge. She says, I know when I'm hungry, if I wanted, she didn't like apples that much. She'd had to peel them and stuff. She says, I know that's my gauge. She says, you too. If you're hungry, you'll eat that apple. And for the rest of my life too, it's like with my kids too, I did the same thing. Have an apple, have a banana. And my kids, yeah, they didn't have a lot of snacks and stuff too, except I did pack like healthy lunches. They had a lot of garbage in their lunch that I didn't realize. They had a sandwich, they'd have fruit snacks, they'd have juice boxes, all that stuff, but they never had a weight issue. They never, ever exhibited any kind of weight problems. But in retrospect, I look back now and I did see some depression and anxiety in my kids over the years when they were younger. And that's something that I always had. And the redness that I have, like, it's just a bit of anxiety, which right now I'm great. But I mean, today, of course, I'm going to be a little anxious. So it wasn't until my 50s, actually, that Well, my business closed. I lost my dad. I got remarried. And I moved away to a really small town. And I had a business there that I bought, a bar and hotel, actually, and I ran it. And that's when I really began to struggle. 'Cause, I mean, when the business was great, but when it closed down, I got remarried and stopped doing that. I became really isolated. And you know, I just kind of felt like I totally got invisible. I started to gain weight. I wasn't really working. I was really blessed that, my husband is a farmer and he's able to totally take care of both of us. I didn't need to work. But as it turned out, it wasn't a good thing for me. So anyway, I found a way to pursue my artistic talents because actually I could do artwork, and I'd always kind of done artwork as a side hustle on and off for different things. And I really got to see a lot of success. I got my stuff in galleries, and I sold a ton of, they're small pieces. And I felt really good about myself and my abilities, but I was always super isolated. I worked alone. My studio, the Barn Hotel, I closed the business. I turned it into my art studio and art gallery, amongst other things over time. So I really was isolated. I think isolation is just my husband, he's a super hard worker. He, worked 24/7. And I was pretty much on my own. And I knew that when we got married that he wouldn't be available for a lot of times, right? So I was just kind of dealing with that. But over time, it was like this. There's a song that says, I'm dying inside and nobody knows it but me, kind of thing. So I took some pictures I saw some pictures of myself. And I think that's really a wake-up call for a lot of people when they actually see themselves in a photo. And I'd see a whole different person. It's like, who is that person? I didn't know who she was. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but forgive me.
No problem.
And I really realized I was lost, and it was a really dark place for me. And I know I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of people that find themselves in a position where they're just lost. They don't know what to do, and they don't know how to find their way back. So at that time too, I was making weekly visits to my mom and to the city because I moved to a small town originally, and my kids were grown. But I'd make it back every week to see my mom and my dad when he was alive, for coffee every Sunday. So that was about the only thing that I actually did. But when I realized how bad I was, I finally sought help. I got a diagnosis, I got therapy, I went on medication, and I gained a bunch of weight, but it really worked for a while. I was totally sold on the medication because I lost a lot of anxiety that I had. I was able to manage a lot of things. I lost a lot of, I used to be really anxious about spiders and stuff like that. If they were around me, I lost my fear of spiders. Like all that anxiety went away. I was totally fine with, they can live in my house. I don't care as long as they don't hang in front of me, that kind of thing. And so I was thinking, well, I am different, but it's funny. Like I saw a therapist, I saw a couple of different doctors. I'd moved doctors and stuff, but not one doctor ever followed up with me. The only time I saw them after the diagnosis and the medication was just to get more medication, like just to refill my prescriptions. That's all they ever did. They never asked me once how I was doing or anything. But through it all, I prayed for God to help me. And one day I heard these words in my head, and it said, he said, use your voice. And a light came on in a sense. I thought, okay, I heard that, like, use your voice. Like, I didn't know what he meant because I was gifted with a beautiful, a lovely singing voice. I'd made a living at it. I'd done hundreds of voiceovers and for TV and radio commercials. I did freelance narration work. So I was always using my voice for a living kind of thing. And but I realized that I'd never really spoken up for myself. I didn't use it to speak up for myself. I went along with things, and when I did speak up for myself, it was kind of too late, and there were ugly consequences, from just trying to, do that. So I decided that I had to find a way to reach out, use my voice to reach out and connect to people that were feeling like me. And I vowed that I was going to get healthy and share anything that I ever gained. So, I don't know why I'm such a mess. I'm usually very good. Since I've been on Carnivore, I've just totally, settled a lot down, but I'm kind of embarrassed about that. But I realized that I had to heal myself first. I had to get educated, so I fell back into Atkins, but now it was called keto. And keto is basically clean keto, is 20 grams or less. So I was doing that, and I knew that so I had to learn. So I went on YouTube and looked up Atkins, and I went to keto. And then, of course, the algorithm put me to Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, all great doctors that and other people that are just sharing their stories. And through that, I started slowly learning. And it did take a few years, because this was about 2017 when I really started to decide to start learning and educating myself. And so it wasn't until January 1st, 2021 that I began. I just thought it was 20 years after I discovered Atkins that I actually, decided it was do or die. I had to get a grip and start implementing the things I'd learned, because I enjoyed learning. That's all I kind of did at the time, was just learn and learn and learn. And then I thought, okay, now I feel ready to apply it. I started keto, really clean, and intermittent fasting was something that I had studied for a lot too. And I really started to understand how intermittent fasting worked. I did that. And then a little later on, I started walking every day. There's a lake nearby that I started walking around every day. It's a couple miles, 2.5 miles, like to and from. And I started to see real progress. I started to feel hopeful. For the first time in ages. I began to lose weight kind of consistently. I had a goal that for my 65th birthday, which was like 6 months from when I started, that I wanted to lose 30 pounds. And I did. By my birthday, I'd reached my goal. I'd lost 30 pounds. I was feeling great. And during that time, I had learned to speak to my husband too about how my situation was. And we ended up from the farm, the city where I grew up in was about an hour away. And so we got a little place in the city as well, so I could be closer to my mom and my kids and be freer to just go and do things as opposed to being stuck on the farm, which with all the pesticides and things around there, I started becoming fearful of going outside at the farm during the summer, right? So it was kind of like I really felt even more isolated. So that turned out being really great, moving to the city. And my husband's great. He commutes back and forth, as much as he can. And but I kept on consistently losing weight. After that, my mom had moved into a nursing home. No, it wasn't nursing. It was a retirement home, because she was fine, but she had lost a lot of her hearing. And so I was able to spend a lot of time with her, but I was consistently kind of still losing weight. And it was she passed away in that September, and she was a very kind, wonderful woman, but she had 7 children. So she never really, she was always proud of us, but she wouldn't ever compliment any one of us without including us all, kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, all our kids are so beautiful. All our kids are this. They're always all of us. But she did tell me that she was so proud of me. And she said, I looked great. Like I looked really good. She was really proud of me, which was nice to hear. And so even though I lost her, I still continued to thrive. I was thriving. But it wasn't until February 2022, yeah. And I got a bad flu bug. And it took a long time to get over. And during that time, my husband and I had bought a whole cow, like a whole, and so we had a freezer full of beef, but I was recovering and I didn't feel like cooking at all. I threw stuff in a crock pot. I just let it cook. And that's all we ate. That's all I ate was I just ate a bit of just meat and salt, and that was all. And I knew that was good. And I didn't really plan on doing the lion diet, but at that time I just did. And after a couple of weeks, I was recovering really well, but I recovered so well that I shocked myself because I always had bleeding gums, and that went away. That was really a surprise because, and my dentist would say, well, maybe just gargle with salt water, just rinse with salt water to try and stop it. Never mentioned diet ever. And, but they cleared up. My gums were awesome. And then my feet got really smooth and soft, and they were always, kind of dry and scratchy. And, I'm barefoot, a lot of the time. And then I noticed that my feet got smooth. And a bunch of other shocking stuff kind of started happening. I found myself in a better mood. And this was after my mom passed away, which I thought I was kind of prepared for, real grief. But she lived to be 94. She went peacefully. And but my confidence came back. I lost more weight. My gums, my feet, my depression lifted, anxiety lifted. My cravings were gone. Like I was just free of any cravings. The whole time I was doing keto, up until this point, I was just doing vegetables too, like broccoli and cauliflower. And my husband, after I did that, just after I was sick and then recovered, he had kind of been skipping breakfast and like doing some things with me. But after that, I told him, I said, if you want to eat vegetables or anything other than meat, then you can buy them. You buy whatever you want and I'll cook it. I said, but I'm just not going to buy any more vegetables or fruit or anything. And we had a freezer full of beef, and I thought, this is great. And and I make bacon and eggs and over time. And he said, no, he never cared. He'd eat whatever. And and then he learned to cook a bunch of stuff too. And because a lot of times I was in the city and he was at the farm, and he learned to cook for himself, and he's lost like 50 pounds also. He stopped snoring. He got all kinds of benefits, even though he doesn't call himself, he doesn't do the research himself, but he's done, what I've mentioned, he eats something, I'll say, oh, that's kind of the same as eating candy. But he, he was open to it. He's a good cheerleader for me. He's great now. So overall, I've lost now over 60 pounds. I originally lost 62 pounds by April of 2022. And then I felt a little bit scrawny, and I was just eating basically one meal a day, and I was feeling
fast.
Yeah. And then I realized that, and then I took the before and after pictures a month later because I thought my daughter took them for me in my backyard. I said, you got to take pictures, because I couldn't believe it, because I was kind of the same measurements, weight, everything as I was in my 20s. I mean, I am now, which shocked me, because when I was starting my journey, I thought, well, I'm not going to try and compete with my 25-year-old self. I'm not going to try and be 125 pounds, but I got down to like 123 pounds. And then I saw myself, and I was a little too small. I was a little too scrawny to me. And I thought, oh, so now I just sit at 130 to 135 pounds, give or take a little bit there. And that I'm totally happy. It's like everything, I went through different wardrobes during my journey, I'd buy stuff, and it's like, oh, gee, this fits again. And then, a couple of months later, it was like, oh, I got to get, it doesn't fit anymore. So, I mean, that was great. So it's kind of like, I feel like I went into a time machine and came out of it 40 years younger. Just feel the way I feel. and the way clothes fit and, wanting to wear a bathing suit and go to the beach and feel confident and play beach volleyball and stuff. I've done all kinds of stuff that I never dreamt I ever would again. I went skiing and I wiped out and just got up again, no consequences. I went roller skating, I wiped out, still no consequences. I was fine. I was trying to think of what else I would play. Yeah, play volleyball, I went golfing for the first time in my life. But I don't have any side effects from anything. I know now that I can fall down and I can get up and I don't have the fear of hurting myself. When my kids were small, I kind of thought, well, if I can't work, if I break my leg or my arm or something, I can't work. I don't have that kind of insurance. So it's so great that I can do pretty much anything, and
That
I feel
that's
awesome.
awesome.
And I started kind of as I was walking. It's a beautiful lake nearby where I live, and lots of grassy areas. So I'd start walking my bare feet, and then lately, as of last summer, I'd be walking, and then I just had this urge to run. And as a child, I could run like the wind. I mean, as a teenager, I could run, but I kind of stopped running, later. And I never really, but I just had this urge to run, and now I start sprinting. Now I'll walk, and then I'll just run like crazy, and then I'll just start walking again. I usually wait for no people to be around because it looks a little funny, but yeah, so I've incorporated sprinting, and now my goal is to just start building some muscle, like some good muscle. But I went to Hack Your Health, KetoCon in Austin, Texas, last few weeks ago, and I got a DEXA scan, and they test my bone density is awesome. I have no visceral fat, very little, like less than 0.8 something, like all in the green zones, and everything checked out so great. And I haven't been to a doctor for anything, for ages. So I'm thrilled with how I feel. It's like I got my life back. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And, you kind of transitioned into it. I feel like your transition into it was similar to mine in that, like, it wasn't intentionally going carnivore. You kinda
Yeah.
went to Atkins or keto to get control of something, and then it just naturally happened.
Yeah. It just, yeah, it wasn't, and see, depression and anxiety, I think so many people suffer from that and they don't know what it is. They don't understand that they have something that needs to be worked on, right? That's just their nature or their personality. And I find a lot of people that I've known too, it's like, "Oh, that's depression." And it's not diagnosed. So they don't understand that that's not just their nature, that it can be improved. And that's what I'd like people to really take away, that they, it's in their hands, that they can deal with, well, all kinds of mental illnesses. They're finding out now, like, Dr. Georgia Ede is a brilliant psychiatrist that that heals with a ketogenic lifestyle and stuff. So it's a lot of people and a lot of elder folks too. They don't understand that their diet is well, of course, most people don't understand it's their diet is killing them if they're eating all the wrong stuff, but that it can be simply fixed, that they can look forward to, like myself. I never dreamt that I would be, I mean, I'm still kind of shocked that I have my life back the way it is and how I was before. I don't even know that person anymore. I feel my heart breaks for her because I didn't know at that time that this was even possible. And and people need to know that, that it's such a short period of time in the scheme of your life to actually dedicate to something, but it's hard to make them believe. That's why I'm so appreciative of the fact that you have me on your show, because like in my circle, other than my husband, uh, nobody is on the carnivore train. They still kind of think, yeah, okay, crazy lady, or like, okay, like they're patronizing and a lot of stuff. Like, okay, yeah, that's all fine, but really, there's no way that any of them are, you know, going to try it anytime soon. And I just had lunch with a friend yesterday, and he's not well. He's got type 2 diabetes. He's very thin, but his he's kind of going downhill. And I've talked to him before about that, like, because we went to high school together, so we've known each other forever. And I was just bringing up the carnivore diet and stuff. In the past, he's like, yeah, but now it's like yesterday, he's like, yeah, he says, but it's it's so expensive as well. And I said, well, actually, it's not. And then I picked up the tab and I looked at our bill. I saved it because I thought, this is what's funny. I had like eggs. I had a couple extra scrambled eggs with my eggs. He had a Coke, a regular Coke, and then we just had small meals. But the Coke was over $4, and the 2 eggs were like $3.98 for 2 extra eggs. So it's kind of like, nutritionally, you can have a pop. They're charging over $4 for a pop, just a regular Coke, which is total garbage. Or you can spend $4 and add a couple of eggs, and just drink the water and have a really, so it's kind of like that kind of mentality that's rough. It's kind of hard to explain unless you just show them a receipt and say, look, but they have to understand that is total garbage food, right? The carbs are what's making them sick. And unfortunately, he doesn't have a good doctor too. That's the thing. Most people don't have a good doctor, a carnivore doctor that actually believes that it's, possible that,
Yeah. And doctors are also just so used to, giving you a patch for whatever the problem happens to be. Oh, you've got type 2 diabetes. It's all right, continue eating the same way you normally are, just use this insulin or whatever it happens to be.
I know, and I know other people too. And my friend who has diabetes, I mean, he's eating sugar, he's eating pancakes, he's eating bread, drinking pop. Another friend of ours, my husband and I, he says no, he takes these drugs and it makes it okay for him to eat these cookies and all this other stuff too. And it's like, that's just that's so abusive, really.
Yeah. It's just so sad. It's just so sad
Horrible.
that people don't put 2 things together and go, "Okay, well, if I take the meds, I can have the cookies, or I could just not have the cookies,
Yeah.
and then I don't need the meds."
I know. I know. And that's the sad thing. But that's why, yeah, again, your channel is so awesome, because I've seen so many great people on your channel that it kind of blows my mind. Like, and I think, well, I haven't dealt with any of that, any of that. They've been through the ringer and they've found their way back. And it's those testimonials that I think that people really need to hear. And that really made a difference for me. And like before and after pictures make a lot to me too, because it's like, you couldn't, they can say they lost a whole bunch of this and they recovered from that, but a lot of weight is just one side effect of it. It's like weight loss is awesome, because that really affects a person's self-esteem, the sense of who they are, and understanding that. I mean, I didn't understand, but I do now, that your body is just Dr. Sten Ekberg put it, is just I think he said, a miraculous healing machine. We are all healing machines if we just remove the bad stuff. It's not like the meat is healing you, it's the not eating all the wrong stuff that's not making you sick. It's just, yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, overcome so much more than I have. But the depression, anxiety, a lot of times is what spirals a person down into a deeper hole. And then, the diabetes and the heart disease and everything else kind of follows. So it's really important work that you're doing, I think. And hopefully in the future, I'll find my voice even more and find a way to help people, and especially seniors. I'm 68 next week. So I know I've seen with my own mom and a lot of other seniors how they're kind of dismissed because they might have, like my mom lost most of her hearing towards near the end of her life. And the way people talk to her, was just wrong. Like she had like 90 years of wisdom and just a beautiful woman with all this knowledge, but she couldn't really hear that well. So a lot of times people would treat her like she was in kindergarten, or that she was a child, or they'd scold her for not hearing, even though they knew that she was deaf, the way some children treat their parents, putting them in retirement homes when they're not really ready to, and because they're all worried. They get control of their, I think that's something I'd like to battle, even with carnivore. Seniors, carnivore can prove to their children that they're not senile, that they can still do everything. They stay active. They live their lives. Their children aren't worrying about them becoming a burden, or they're not worried about themselves becoming a burden. Like carnivore is the answer to just staying healthy I'm looking so forward to the next 30 years of my life. I never would have dreamt that I'd be this excited about the next phase of my life. I just noticed my t-shirt. Yeah. It's like carnivore, our lives, our lives are at stake.
Nice.
Our lives are at stake, but it's like our health is at stake, and that's our life.
So, day to day, what's your eating plan like?
I pretty much don't eat breakfast. I never really was a big breakfast person. Usually when I'm at home, I try not to, I don't eat. I'm usually not interested in eating anything until after I've done everything else I want to do that day. Before I walk, I take in a walk. If I have some errands to run, I usually do all that first, and then I'll come home, or maybe two, 3, even 4 in the afternoon. I might just have a big meal. The thing about that is that and that's just meat and salt, basically. Sometimes eggs, sometimes bacon. But usually after I eat a lot, that's when I kind of need a nap. Then I'm just kind of relaxed for a while. And then I don't really want to do anything for a little while. It's kind of like then I need to just, relax. So I try to do everything I need to get done first, and then I'll eat. And then in the evening, my husband and I, neither of us, like we just stop. We don't snack at all. It doesn't occur to us. We have water. We eat, if he will, because he's on the farm and he's got a bunch of guys there that, in their workroom or whatever, someone will bring donuts and whatever. So he'll still the odd time, eat this and that. And I will, I might have a beer or some wine, but there's certain things that I just won't touch. And that's generally, donuts and bread and sweets and stuff. So, and that's my two of my brothers, they come over every Sunday for coffee. And that's the only time we put out a few extra snacks, like some nuts. And I will eat a little bit of cheese, but it kind of stops me up. It kind of stalls me out. I don't really feel good on it. So, but basically I just eat that meal. And then later, if I have leftovers of that, because I can't eat the whole dish that I made for myself, it could be just all ground beef. It could be ground beef with some eggs. It could be a steak. It could be any meat out of the crock pot. And then if I had something left over that night, then I might think, oh yeah, I'll finish that off. Then I'll just eat the rest of it before I go to bed. But yeah, I just learned too that I can't have stuff in the house. I can't have like a bunch of stuff left over, like, because I know I'm an addict. I know how I am. It's kind of like I can't moderate really. I just I can't restricting doesn't work for me. It's kind of like, no, I can't. I just can't really touch it. There are a couple things that I can get away with, and I know it doesn't really trigger me, but generally, yeah, I try and stay away from all of that stuff. I can, and it's easy for me because I don't have any cravings generally, unless I do have a little cheat, at coffee, and I do have a little of this, and then it's like, then I'll be wondering if there's anything left over from coffee, like maybe there's a piece of the cake left or something, and then I'll, and I'll know. It's kind of like with the addiction, it's kind of like I know I'm going to eat it. Right? I need to throw it in the garbage right when I'm clearing stuff up. And my husband, he might want to eat it, but I don't want him to eat it either. So actually that part is easy, and people need to know that it gets that easy.
Mm. Yeah. So, speaking of other people, if a friend came to you and said, look, I'm going to get started, what's the best way to go about this carnivore thing? What advice would you give them?
First of all, I would just say, education. Do learn what you can, like figure out why you want to do it, who you're doing it for, the love of your kids, your family, you want to be around, whatever it is that you really want to accomplish, whether it's weight loss, and then start eliminating things. then, and you'll find as you do, it'll just get easier. And the thing is, there are times where it's not really easy, but I was thinking about this just the other day, and I thought, your human body has the ability, um, like the female body has the ability to create a whole new human being in their out of their own, you know, their own physiology. And it takes 9 months to grow that baby and send it off into the world to live their life. And it's like that. You kind of have to take it, nurture it little by little to grow a new your baby, a new you. And then you have to treat yourself like you would treat that baby. You don't feed it poison. You want to take care of it. You love that little person, and that little person is you grown up. So it's a way. It takes 9 months, and so like give yourself a bit of time. A few months. To jump in that time machine and turn the clock back and start flying around.
Yeah. So Maria, if people want to reach out to you, do you have YouTube or an Instagram or anything like that?
Well, I wanted to start a YouTube for many years because I figured that's how I might be able to but I didn't have the confidence to really start a YouTube channel. But my son recently helped me start an Instagram, because before I went to KetoCon, I thought if I could make some connections, that would be a place for someone to connect with me. So it's I only have one post, I think, on there, one video introducing myself. And I'd like to call it Later Lifestyles, because it's about people in later life is what I'd like it to be. But it's marialang.biz is the Instagram thing if they want to communicate with me, but there's really nothing on it at the moment. And I would like to start a YouTube over time with just little things about, dealing with carnivore and aging and ageism, like how to fight ageism. And that would probably be Maria_Lang. I originally looked into it, but I haven't been able to really get the confidence up to actually just put it all out there. But that's what I'm going to work towards, I hope.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No worries. Well, I'll link to those below. And I like the idea of focusing on ageism because,
yeah,
I think ageism is the only kind of ism that still people can get away with. People are still able to just say with impunity.
yeah, it is. And the people are getting younger and younger when they're being dismissed, like for surgeries and for, like, oh, well, at my age, and it's self-ageism. People need to stop saying that about themselves. Like, well, at my age, I don't need to get my teeth fixed, or at my age, it's like, no, at your age, and you're only 60. You got 40 good years left in you, if you just take that step to take care of yourself and know that it's possible. I think that's the hardest thing for people at a certain age, to understand that it's all doable. It's still possible at any age to look forward to the rest of your life and celebrate your life and get healthy and get that second or third or fourth wind kind of thing. Get it going, or even better than
Yeah.
ever, because I'm better
Yeah.
than ever. Well,
Yeah.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much for coming on today, Maria. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you.